add missing categories, or reorder names to ensure compliance with the inclusion laws. The Commission has warned that the failure to ensure inclusive representation could result in the directives for correction or legal action. By law, proportional seats must represent women, Dalits, indigenous groups, Madhesis, Tharus, Muslims, people from backward regions, and persons with disabilities. Of the total House membership, 40%, that is 110 lawmakers, will be elected through the proportional representation system. Former Prime Minister and CPN-UML Chairman KP Sharma Oli has provided statements to both the Inquiry Commission and the National Human Rights Commission regarding the events of the September 8 and 9. The Inquiry Commission confirmed that Oli's statements were submitted today following a formal request. Previously, he had indicated he would not provide a statement. Oli personally visited the Human Rights Commission, where the session lasted approximately 2.5 hours. Commission member Lily Thapa said the questions focused on his actions during the protests in his role as executive head and chair of the National Security Council. Oli was asked a total of 35 questions, and both commissions say they will proceed with their inquiries based on the statements provided. In a major move to modernize trade, Nepal has scrapped its decade-old reference-based pricing at the customs, replacing it with a digital transaction value system. Officials say it will cut revenue leakage, lower trade costs, and make invoice manipulation nearly impossible. Traders are optimistic, but some report persistent issues with the outdated reference prices, urging full reliance on commercial invoices for imported goods. This is our issue of the day. Stay tuned for more. Nepali athletes won 26 medals at the Asian Taekwondo Invitational Competition and the 10th Mansan Taekwondo Open Championship held in Nanjing, China. The Nepal athletes won 4 gold, 7 silver and 15 bronze medals. Medals were won in Kyorugi, Pumse and speed kick events. Jolina Basnet, Ridayani Basnet, Kairav Prasad Lohani and Gita Bista won gold medals. Silver medalists included Ashray Upadhyay, Saksham Shrestha, Ayam Podal, Meghani Khatani, Jigme Tenzing Sherpa, Deepak Dulal and Ranjita Bhusal. Stay tuned for more. We'll take a short break here. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World News Hour. In a historic move to modernize international trade, Nepal has abolished its decade-old reference-based pricing system at the customs point. The newly launched AI-enabled digital transaction value system is expected to be the cure of all complaints at the customs, including revenue leakage. Traders are elated and officials expect reduced trade costs and almost impossibility of invoice manipulation. Sabika Shrestha explains the system.
In what can be described as a landmark shift in Nepal's trade governance, the government has formally scrapped the long-criticized reference value book at custom points. It has been replaced with a technology-driven, transaction-based customs valuation system aligned with World Trade Organization (WTO) General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade GATT principles. It was Finance Minister Rameshwar Prasad Khanal's initiative, with pilot project launched in September last year at the Rani Custom Point in Morung of eastern Nepal. From January 2 this year, it has been launched across the country, marking an end to an era characterized by opaque price setting, discretionary authority, and structural inefficiencies within customs administration. According to the Department of Customs, the system had already been implemented in 11 customs offices before its nationwide rollout. Custom points in Darchula, Mahakali, Larki, and Kimangthang have yet to adopt the system due to logistic challenges. Director General of the Department of Customs, Syam Bhandari, said the reform is anchored on a robust digital valuation mechanism.
व्यवसायीले सही तिरेको पैसा पेड और पेएबल भन्छौं हामी हैन उले जुन तिरिसकेको अथवा तिर्न बाँकी पैसाहरु चाहिँ त्यो चाहिँ ट्रान्ज्याक्सन भ्यालु हो त्यो भ्यालुमा उहाँले तपाईको भन्सारमा डिक्लेयर गरेर भन्सारमा लागेको आईडीहरु तिरेर जब देशभित्र ल्याउनुहुन्छ त्यसपछि कति लेयरमा उहाँको जान्छ त्यो लेयरहरु चाहिँ के हुन्छ त्यो वस्तुको प्रोडक्ट सही आइसकेपछि त्यसलाई भ्याट बिलिङ गर्दै तल गयो भने चाहिँ उपभोक्ताले पनि अब चाहिँ यथार्थ प्राइसमा त्यो सामान पाउने
This shift has effectively ended what officials describe as the earlier compulsion to submit inflated or fabricated invoices merely to match reference prices.
After the online database valuation system has been implemented, what we have seen over the past few months, any industry importing such product, their raw material, there is no such issue. It's all working as previously it's being done. But when it comes to trading companies or trading houses who imports any of the food grain item or any other product, the process and the valuation system is same as previous. It's not that effective as we thought.
Though it will not lower the price of goods, but the system will ensure realistic pricing and make manipulation of the price at custom as well as the market difficult. As products move through VAT billing and retail layers, consumers gain the right to access goods at prices reflective of genuine costs. Alongside the online valuation database, the Department of Customs has also implemented a parallel risk management system designed to identify valuation anomalies using artificial intelligence and machine learning.
डेभिएसन हुन सक्छ मूल्य त बिहान एउटा हुन सक्छ दिउँसो एउटा हुन सक्छ बेलुका अर्को हुन सक्छ मालवस्तुको आधारमा पेरिसेबल गुड्स हो भने त्यो भो अर्को तपाईले क्वान्टिटी कति उठाउनु भो हैन 2 पिसको एउटा रेट होला 100 पिसको 1000 पिसको अर्को रेट होला त्यसका क्वालिटीका कुराहरु त्यसले मूल्यलाई भ्यारी गर्न सक्छ तर त्यसको जस्टिफाई चाहिँ तपाईको व्यवसायीले डिक्लेयर गर्नु पर्यो यो मेरो सही हो अनि त्यो भन्सार अधिकृतले ती कुराहरु चेक जाँच गर्छ.
This layered digital mechanism enhances transparency across the supply chain and discourages illegal trade, undervaluation, overvaluation, and black marketing. According to the department, there is still need to orient the traders on the system who expect customs to accept invoices at face value without verification. By redefining customs checkpoints as facilitators of trade rather than bottlenecks of control, Nepal is taking a decisive step toward a more transparent, competitive, and globally integrated trade regime. Sabika Shrestha with local correspondent Mohan Manandar and camera person Rasila Shrestha reporting for NTV World.
Despite the enforcement of digital customs valuation database system, traders still face issues with outdated reference prices. Despite the rollout, reflects concerns about the system's effective implementation. They say customs valuation database system will achieve its full effectiveness only if the valuation of the goods imported through trading companies is based on commercial invoices, similar to the practice currently applied to industrial raw materials. Rojina Rai with our local correspondent Mohan Manandar explains more on the matter.
The government of Nepal has introduced the custom valuation database system across all customs offices nationwide, officially replacing the old reference price book system as of 2nd January. This new system is being implemented as a pilot project for the import and exports of goods, offering a modern alternative to the traditional reference price list. The online valuation database serves as a risk assessment tool, helping customs authorities verify the accuracy of declared values for imported goods. Despite this, many customs points across the country continue to rely on the older reference price list, raising concerns among industrialists and business persons, particularly regarding goods imported through trading companies. In response, the Department of Customs temporarily suspended the use of previous reference price list at the Biratnagar Customs Office following request from the business community. Experts note that market fluctuations naturally affect the price of goods over time, and reliance on outdated reference prices can be problematic. Industrialists emphasize the online database system is highly scientific and argued that valuation should reflect the prices prevailing at the time of actual purchase.
Biratnagar भन्सार कार्यालयमा इम्पोर्ट हुने गुड्समा लमसम 98% गुड्समा चाहिँ कुनै डिस्प्युट हुँदैन. 98% गुड्स चाहिँ जे भ्यालु डिक्लेयर भएको हुन्छ त्यही डिक्लेरेसन गरेकै भ्यालुको आधारमा चाहिँ क्लियर भइरहेको हुन्छ. 2% गुड्समा चाहिँ कस्तो हुन्छ भने कतिपय अवस्थामा इन्स्पेक्सन गर्ने क्रममा कस्टम अफिसरले चाहिँ त्यहाँनिर केही क्याफियत छ कि भन्ने कुराको जाँच गर्नुहुन्छ. त्यो जाँच गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ त्यहाँ यदि भरपर्दो डकुमेन्टेसन अनि के छ भने भ्यालुएसन गर्ने जुन आधारका लागि चाहिने डकुमेन्ट्सहरू छ त्यो डकुमेन्ट्सहरूको चाहिँ नभेटेको खण्डमा त्यसलाई चाहिँ हामी के गर्छौँ भने अब हामीसँग भएका अनलाइन डेटाबेसलाई चाहिँ रेफरेन्सको रूपमा लिन्छौँ, आधार लिन्छौँ.
Rather than using invoices up to 90 days old, additional experts have warned that the old reference price system, which was updated only twice a year, created opportunities for manipulation by traders and customs officials seeking to influence high custom duties. Rojina Rai with local correspondent Mohan Manandar, Biratnagar, Nepal.
We reached out to traders to gather their perspectives on the new digital customs valuation database system. Here's what they had to say.
खासै उद्योगमा त्यति समस्या थिएन. उद्योग कच्चा पदार्थको भ्यालुएसनमा पहिला पनि त्यति समस्या थिएन. अहिले पनि त्यति छैन केही पनि. तर ट्रेडिङको हकमा मलाई लाग्छ अहिले पनि यसले डिजिटलले समाधान त्यतिको लिएर आएको छैन. प्र्याक्टिकली त्यतिसम्म इम्प्लिमेन्ट नभएको जस्तो हामीले बुझेका छौँ. हामीले पनि केही आयात गर्ने व्यवसायहरूसँग कुरा गर्दाखेरि पहिला जसरी चलिरहेको थियो उनीहरू त्यही हिसाबले अहिले नै रेफरेन्स भ्यालुलाई नै अलिकति भ्यालुएसनको हिसाबले रेफर गरिरहेका छन्.
अहिले विश्वभरि जुन छ मूल्याङ्कन हेर्ने अनलाइन सिस्टम छ जसले जहाँबाट पनि द रेट हेर्न सकिन्छ. त त्यो 100 रुपियाँको चिज 60 रुपियाँमा बिल लिएर बिल ल्याउन कहाँबाट सकिन्छ. भारतबाट माल किन्दाखेरि त्यो जीएसटी लागू भइसकेको चिजमा जति मूल्य छ त्यही मूल्यमा त्यहाँ काटिन्छ. त्यो तलमाथि गर्ने त कुनै ठाउँ नै हुँदैन. कसैले गर्दैन त्यो. यो खाली भन्सारको चोरीको लागि
उद्योगले त आफ्नो कच्चा पदार्थको लागि त्यो सन्दर्भ मूल्य भए पनि नभए पनि हामीले त्यो अनुसारको ल्याइराखेका हुन्छौँ र त्यो अनुसारको अनलाइन सिस्टममा गइरहेको छ. मैले भन्न खोजेको के भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ उद्योग कच्चा पदार्थको लागि त केही कुरा आएन. ट्रेडिङमा नै फरक परिरहेको हुनाले गर्दाखेरि नै जुन मूल्यको आजको बेलामा 10 रुपियाँ छ भनेदेखि आज भन्सारमा त्यो मूल्यको चाहिँ 15 रुपियाँ गरिरहेको छ भने त्यो चिजलाई नै हाम्रो विचक बिललाई चाहिँ मान्यता दिनु पर्यो भन्ने माग गरेको हुनाले त्यो सिस्टम चाहिँ आज अनलाइनमा आइरहेका छ नि त. भनेको त्यो अनलाइनमा आएको सिस्टममा भोलि भएन भने त त्यसमा जरिमाना छ, पेनाल्टी छ, सबै कुराहरू छ नि त. भन्दाखेरि त्यो कुरालाई नै आउनुपर्छ भन्दाखेरि त्यही फेरि अहिले पनि त्यो सन्दर्भ मूल्यलाई नै मान्यता दिएको कारणले गर्दा चाहिँ अनलाइन सिस्टम लागू गरेर कुनै फाइदा भएन भन्न खोजेको चाहिँ व्यापारीहरूको भनाइ छ.
हामीले त पहिलेदेखि नै भन्दै थियौँ कि यो जुन डाटाबेस किताबी जुन मूल्याङ्कन थियो त्यो एकपल्ट हुन्थ्यो सालमा, तर त्यही चलिरहन्थ्यो, वर्षभरि नै त्यही चलिरहन्थ्यो. तर आजको बजार छ कस्तो बजार हुन्छ भने हरेक आइटमको सुन चाँदी नै लियो, डेली आज रेट अर्को छ, भोलि अर्को हुन्छ, पछि अर्को हुन्छ। अहिले जुन यो गरेको छ गभर्नमेन्टले राम्रो कुरो हो, उद्योगीका लागि पनि व्यवसायीहरूको लागि पनि।
त्यो जुन किताबी सौन्दर्य मूल्य पुस्तिका थियो त्यो चाहिँ आदम जमानादेखि चलिआएको प्रथा हो भन्सारमा। हरेक बेलामा के पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्टको दाम, आइरनको दाम सबै दामको तलमाथि भएको हुनाले त्यो दामहरू तलमाथि हुनुपर्ने थियो, तर त्यतिखेर त्यो हुँदैन थियो। अब अहिले चाहिँ त्यो सिस्टम हटाएर भन्सारले अनलाइन भ्यालुएसन सिस्टम मोड्युल लगाएको छ। तर यो मोड्युल लागू हुनुपर्ने इमानदारीपूर्वक, व्यापारी पनि इमानदारीपूर्वक आउनु पर्यो र भन्सार पनि इमानदारीपूर्वक आउनु पर्यो। दुईजना इमानदारीपूर्वक आयो भने मात्र सफल हुन्छ भन्ने मेरो भनाइ हो।
Delcy Rodriguez has been named interim leader of Venezuela after U.S. seizes Maduro. Global powers reel as Trump pledges to run the country until a transition. Further on this in our cover story. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World News Hour. Venezuela's Supreme Court has named Vice President Delcy Rodriguez as the country's interim leader. The ruling comes after the United States reportedly seized President Nicolas Maduro and removed him from the country. The court instructed Rodriguez to assume and exercise in an acting capacity all duties and powers of the presidency to ensure administrative continuity and defend the nation. The judges did not declare Maduro permanently absent, a move that would require elections within 30 days. Meanwhile, former U.S. President Donald Trump stated that the United States would manage Venezuela temporarily until a leadership transition can be organized. Earlier, Rodriguez had called for Maduro's immediate release and condemned his detention.
Exigimos la inmediata liberación del presidente Nicolás Maduro y de su esposa Cilia Flores. Único presidente de Venezuela, el presidente Nicolás Maduro. Aquí está el presidente, las retomo. Estamos dispuestos a relaciones de respeto. Estamos dispuestos a relaciones en el marco de la legalidad internacional y de las leyes de la República Bolivariana de Venezuela. Es lo único que aceptaremos para un tipo de relacionamiento. Sabotaje petrolero. Nosotros estamos listos para defender a Venezuela. Nosotros estamos listos para defender nuestros recursos naturales que deben ser para el desarrollo nacional.
The U.S. operation in oil-rich Venezuela came as a shock to the world as sitting President Nicolas Maduro, along with his family, was captured in padded pause. Reaction of the U.S. move definitely sharply polarized. It is still pouring in as Aprila Kisinglama looks into this developing story.
U.S. President Donald Trump posted on Truth Social that he personally monitored what the White House is calling Operation Absolute Resolve, a massive coordinated strike involving U.S. military and law enforcement assets. Officials say U.S. forces struck deep into Venezuela, disabled key military facilities, and captured Maduro and his wife Cilia Flores, both named in long-standing U.S. indictments on narco-terrorism charges. U.S. military officials say the operation began at past midnight in the Venezuelan capital, Caracas, and 4 other cities that housed major military installations. Within hours, U.S. forces launched a large-scale coordinated deployment across the region involving aircraft, helicopters, and surveillance platforms to secure the operation and prevent interference.
Well, we're going to be running it with a group, and we're going to make sure it's run properly. We're going to rebuild the oil infrastructure, which will cost billions of dollars. It'll be paid for by the oil companies directly. They will be reimbursed for what they're doing, but it's going to be paid. And we're going to get the oil flowing the way it should be. As you know, it was just a minor flow. It was actually a minor flow for what...
Helicopters carrying elite U.S. Delta Force personnel entered Venezuelan airspace and disabled Venezuelan air defenses, clearing the way to the target. Helicopters landed at President Nicolas Maduro's heavily fortified compound and apprehended Maduro and his wife within minutes, according to U.S. officials. Trump proudly announced that not a single U.S. artillery or personnel was injured in the entire operation. Maduro and Flores were transferred to a U.S. Navy ship before being flown to the United States. In parts of Caracas and abroad, Venezuelans started celebrating, calling it an end of a regime which they blame for years of hardship. Others call it kidnapping and an act of imperial overreach that tramples international norms and could destabilize an entire region. A sitting head of state has entered the U.S. justice system, an outcome few believed possible. The development reflects a significant expansion of American reach while raising unresolved questions about legality, precedents, and global consequences. What this ultimately means for U.S. influence, for Venezuela's future, and for the international norms governing relations between nations remains uncertain.
We now connect to foreign policy expert Dr. Nishchalnath Pandey for an insight on international fallout of the U.S. capturing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife. Dr. Pandey, welcome to NTV World News Hour.
Thank you.
Dr. Pandey, if you can hear me, what are the immediate international and regional implications of the U.S. capturing President and his wife?
Well, this is definitely against the UN Charter. It's a violation of international law, and it sets a very dangerous precedence and therefore very worrying for small countries like us. Secondly, small countries like us will have to be very careful because it signifies that the international order is now going towards grave uncertainty, and therefore we'll have to be very careful about handling of international relations. However, the situation in Venezuela was very grave. The economic crisis was very grave. Venezuela was exporting drugs to the United States. Let's also look at the other side of the same coin. Elections were not free and fair, and the people of Venezuela were suffering not only from the last few years but also from last few decades. So therefore, we have to look at both sides of the coin to make an assessment.
Now, Dr. Pandey, what lessons does this event offer for regional diplomacy, especially for countries that are balancing relations with major powers like the US, China, and Russia?
Well, we can only hope for a peaceful resolution. President Trump has said that he will continue to stay in Venezuela unless political stability is restored. That, I think, is not conducive to international order at the moment. The principles of the UN Charter has to be adhered to, and the sovereignty of all states have to be safeguarded. And therefore, I think the people of Venezuela should decide through their elected representative on who should rule Venezuela. But at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, there were a lot of problems coming from the incumbent president. The supply of drugs in particular to the United States was very troublesome, not only to the people of America, but for the international community.
So could this operation set like a dangerous precedent in the international law, and what message does it send to other global leaders?
Well, the lesson, I think, is that we have to be aware of the sensitivities of major powers in the vicinity. All small countries have to be very sensitive to their genuine concerns. In every region, this can be replicated. But as a small country in a very difficult geopolitical location, Nepal can always hope for peaceful resolution of conflicts, for avoiding this kind of a direct military intervention, even arresting the head of state. And we hope that wisdom will prevail, not only among Venezuela and the United States, but also in the international order. And also the United Nations system has been seen as extremely weak. powerless. It has been seen as a powerless organ. We need to see that United Nations starts functioning as a robust organization.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Pandey, for joining us and for your insightful observations.
Thank you so much.
Earlier yesterday, President Donald Trump said that the U.S. will run Venezuela until a safe, proper and judicious transition can be ensured. President Trump also pledged that U.S. oil companies would rebuild Venezuela's broken infrastructure and generate revenue for the country.
Maduro and Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York. It's Jay Clayton, for their campaign of deadly narco-terrorism against the United States and its citizens. Well, we're going to be running it with a group, and we're going to make sure it's run properly. We're going to rebuild the oil infrastructure, which will cost billions of dollars. It'll be paid for by the oil companies directly. They will be reimbursed for what they're doing, but it's going to be paid.
The U.S. has faced mounting international criticism after capturing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, First Lady Celia Flores, and bringing them to the United States. While some Western nations labeling Maduro a dictator have supported ending his rule, others have strongly condemned the U.S. operation. Meanwhile, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres described the capture as a dangerous precedent and warned it could seriously affect regional stability, urging all Venezuelan stakeholders to engage in inclusive dialogue while respecting the human rights and international law. Strong allies of Venezuela have also spoken out. Russia has called on the U.S. to release the legally elected president and his wife, while analysts say Moscow will reassess its support for Latin American allies. China condemned the U.S. strikes as a clear violation of international law, calling for Maduro and Flores' safety to be prioritized and for Washington to halt the attempts to topple the Venezuelan government. Now that's a wrap on our cover story. Moving on, the Central Security Committee has resolved to ensure the upcoming election is conducted in a safe and transparent environment. The meeting, chaired by Home Minister Om Prakash Aryal at the Ministry of Home Affairs today, focused on election strategies and preparations, with security officials briefing on plans to successfully manage the House of Representatives election, which is scheduled for March 5. Committee members also discussed current security challenges, national and international developments, and the issue of escaped prisoners from various districts, according to the Home Ministry spokesperson Anand Kafle. Nepal's main opposition party, the Nepali Congress, is facing growing internal tension over whether to hold a regular general convention or a special convention, raising questions about possible divisions within the party. After its earlier schedule was disrupted, the party announced a revised timeline for a regular convention. However, a faction led by General Secretaries Gagan Thapa and Bishwa Prakash Sharma is preparing for a special convention, arguing that new leadership should emerge before the next election. Party leaders, however, insist this reflects internal democratic debate rather than a move towards a split. They say the convention process has been adjusted with national elections in mind, and that any special convention would aim to reinforce unity. Party workers have also urged both sides to show flexibility to strengthen the party going forward. Moving on, Nepal's flood-damaged Raswagari hydropower project has resumed electricity generation, producing 68 megawatts after a 6-month shutdown. The 111-megawatt project was severely damaged by floods on July 9 last year, which destroyed its intake dam and canal system. Power from 2 turbines has now been reconnected to the national grid. According to Raswagadi Hydropower Company, 37 megawatts were restored in November, with an additional 31 megawatts added recently, following the repair and rehabilitation work. The remaining 43 megawatts is expected to come online by May and June. The company estimates flood-related damage at 3.51 billion Nepali rupees. In another part of the country, in the northern Thading of central Nepal, local youths are taking an active role in promoting tourism, with female two-wheeler riders leading the initiative. Riders from Kathmandu travel through Khanikhola Rural Municipality to explore and showcase the scenic Ruby Valley, highlighting its potential as a prime destination for adventure rides. Participants say well-maintained roads and dedicated adventure routes could attract more domestic and international tourists to the area. Despite northern Thading's natural beauty, tourism development has lagged due to limited promotion and minimal initiatives by the local authorities. Experts urge the municipality to improve road access, accommodations and facilities, not only for adventure riders but also for climbers targeting peaks like the Ganesh Himal, Paldur Himal and Bawil Himal along the Thading-Raswa border. We shall see with the global updates, but for now, a quick recap of the headlines. Maduro appears in New York court. U.S. Secretary of State clarifies U.S. action is against drug traffickers. District administrations urge social harmony after vandalism at religious sites sparks regional tensions. Election Commission prepares to return proportional candidate list amid criticism over inclusive representation in upcoming polls. Former Prime Minister Oli furnishes statements to two commissions regarding his actions during September 8 and 9 protests. Nepal abolishes reference pricing at customs, introduces AI-driven transaction value system nationwide. And Nepali athletes clinched 26 medals, including 4 golds at Asian Taekwondo Invitational in China. Gunmen have raided a village in northern Nigeria's Niger state, killing at least 30 villagers and abducting others in what marks the latest deadly attack in the conflict-hit region. According to Niger police spokesman, over 30 victims lost their lives during the attack and some were also kidnapped. Spokesperson Wasiu Abiodun added that the gunmen stormed Kasuwan Daji market in Demo village at around 4:30 p.m. on Saturday, burning stalls and looting food items. The attackers arrived from the National Park forest along Kabe district, according to the police, pointing to a usual trend where expansive forest reserves act as hideouts for armed gangs. Niger State has been one of the hardest hit by violence in the recent months. Security forces have struggled to contain the violence despite the ongoing operations. North Korea launched ballistic missiles before rival South Korea's president started a state visit to China, and just hours after the United States attacked Venezuela. The firings of at least 2 missiles, the country's first in 2 months, further heightened global tensions after the U.S. President Donald Trump launched the attack that captured President Nicolas Maduro. Meanwhile, South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung arrived in Beijing, the first South Korean leader to visit Beijing in 6 years. His 4-day trip comes less than a week after China carried out massive military drills around Taiwan Island. Lee, accompanied by a delegation of business and tech leaders, hopes to expand economic cooperation in the meetings with President Xi Jinping and other top officials. Seoul has for decades trodden a fine line between China, its top trading partner, and the United States, its chief defense guarantor. The visit, Li's first to China since taking office in June, comes amid heightened global tensions after Pyongyang's aggressive display on the heels of the U.S. attack on Venezuela. We take a short break here. Coming up are the business updates.
Venezuela is closing a turbulent year for its economy amid sharply heightened tensions with the United States a day after reports of U.S. strikes and the reported capture of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife. Financial markets and businesses are bracing for further instability as political uncertainty deepens. The country's currency has continued to slide, with the official cost of buying $1 up 4.79% over the past 12 months. The sharp depreciation reflects intense inflationary pressure, weak oil revenues, and tight access to foreign currency. Higher import costs are weighing on companies and households, compounding economic stress at a critical moment for the country. Syrians are lining up at exchange shops to replace old banknotes as newly issued currency begins circulating in the market. The rollout follows the unveiling of new banknotes on December 29 by Syrian leader Ahmed al-Shara. The new notes replace those bearing images of ousted ruler Bashar al-Assad and his family. Authorities hope the move will help restore confidence in the Syrian pound, which has lost significant value after more than a decade of war. The currency change is seen as part of broader efforts to stabilize the economy and signal a new political chapter. The heli-ski season has officially begun in Turkey's Kakar Mountains, attracting elite athletes and adventure tourists to the Eder Plateau in Rize. As one of the few places in the world authorized for the extreme sport, helicopters carry skiers to remote, untouched summits inaccessible by ski lifts. Participants then descend steep valleys, carving fresh tracks into deep powder under the supervision of professional guides. Around 400 international athletes are expected to take part during the season, which will run through the end of April. Authorities say strict safety and security measures are in place as the region strengthens its profile on the global winter tourism map. India has unveiled a series of initiatives aimed at strengthening its research, development and innovation ecosystem. Minister of State for Science and Technology and Earth Sciences, Dr. Jitendra Singh, announced new guidelines to recognize in-house R&D centers of deep tech startups and launched innovation platforms under the PRISM scheme. The event also saw the release of the Department of Scientific and Industrial Research's Disaster Management Plan and the exchange of memorandums of understanding with key stakeholders. The initiatives are designed to support startups, individuals, and MSMEs while promoting collaboration and resilience in national development. The minister said the efforts align with India's push for self-reliance and heighten the growing leadership role of women across sectors.
Time now for our sports update. The World Cup Trophy Tour began in Riyadh of Saudi Arabia, marking the start of a global promotional campaign ahead of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Former Italy international Alessandro Del Piero unveiled football's most prestigious prize during a ceremony attended by fans, football officials, and invited guests. Now the weather updates from across Nepal first and then from across the world. We are almost at the end of this bulletin, but before we wrap up, let's take a look into the top stories once again. Maduro appears in New York court. U.S. Secretary of State clarifies U.S. action is against drug traffickers. District administrations urge social harmony after vandalism at religious sites sparks regional tensions. Election Commission prepares to return proportional candidate list amid criticism over inclusive representation in the upcoming polls. Former Prime Minister Oli furnishes statements to 2 commissions regarding his actions during September 8 and 9 protests. Nepal abolishes reference pricing at customs, introduces AI-driven transaction value system nationwide. And Nepali athletes clinched 26 medals, including 4 golds at Asian Taekwondo Invitational in China. That is all for the moment. Do join us for our social media and visit our official website at nepaltelevision.com to get the latest updates and news. This is Bijata Bhandari. Thank you for watching. Good night.